I walked my wife and kids to the car, watching them get in and wave goodbye. Melissa, my wife, was taking the children to stay with her sister in another town for a couple of days. It didn't happen often, and the house would be almost empty. Almost, because Evelyn, my mother-in-law, was still here. Evelyn was a woman in her prime, well-groomed, confident, with that special kind of beauty that only deepens over time. Even now, standing in the doorway to see her daughter off, she looked flawless. Her hair was neatly styled, her gentle smile warm, and her eyes held something special. When the car disappeared around the corner, the house fell quiet. "We've got a few days of complete silence ahead of us," Evelyn said with a light smile, heading toward the kitchen. "Maybe we should celebrate with a nice dinner." I nodded, feeling an odd sense of anticipation. The evening passed over dinner and a glass of wine. We talked about little things, laughed. I'd always known Evelyn was smart and charming, but that night, she seemed more alive. While clearing the table, our hands brushed. I felt a sudden warmth travel up my arm, like an unexpected electric spark. Our eyes met, and there was something in her gaze I hadn't noticed before. "You've always been so thoughtful," she said softly. The room fell into a charged silence. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled, and she gently touched my cheek. It was warm, friendly, and far too personal. I looked away, pretending to search for something to talk about, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The next morning, Evelyn was already in the kitchen, wearing a light, casual dress, sipping coffee in the soft morning sunlight. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine ad, calm, put together, and, as always, beautiful. "Good morning," she said, her voice warmer than usual. We spoke as we always did, but I caught myself focusing less on her words and more on her tone, the way she absent-mindedly bit her lip after a sip of coffee. I knew it wasn't right, but I couldn't seem to look away. The day passed in small chores. That evening, while we were in the kitchen putting away dishes, she suddenly stopped, looked at me, and said quietly, "You know, sometimes the most unexpected people turn out to be the closest." I froze. The words were ambiguous, and we both knew it. Our eyes locked, and for a brief moment, the world around us seemed to fade, leaving only the two of us, the dim kitchen light, and the feeling that something could happen. But Evelyn just smiled, put the last plate in the cupboard, and walked out, leaving me standing there, unsettled. Over the next days, I began to notice the little things. She held my gaze just a little longer than necessary. Her hand would brush mine when she walked past. She laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. These weren't actions, exactly, more like signals, understood only by someone already looking for them. On Sunday, we sat in the living room with mugs of tea. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. She was watching the storm, then turned to me. "Do you ever feel like your life is too predictable?" I hesitated. Yes, I'd felt that. And now, more than ever, her hand lightly touched mine. And in that instant, I knew we were standing on the edge of something that could change everything. By Sunday evening, the rain was heavier. Big drops slid down the windows like someone was blurring the world outside on purpose. The TV murmured in the background, but neither of us was watching. Evelyn sat in the chair opposite me, knees drawn up, hands wrapped around her tea. The warm light of the lamp traced every soft line of her face. Her hair, slightly undone from a day at home, made her look disarmingly approachable. "Sometimes," she said, still looking out the window, "I feel like I'm living someone else's life, like it's all been written for me." I smirked. "That's called a script, and I think we might share the same author." She met my eyes, a mix of a smile and sadness flickering there. "Ever think about changing the story?" It was a dangerous question. "Sure," I said, "but rewriting it usually comes with consequences." She laughed softly, a sound that somehow felt too intimate. "Maybe, but sometimes the consequences are worth it." Silence settled again. The sound of rain filled the room. She rose and walked to the window, stopping close enough for me to catch her faint, sweet and spicy scent. "Your shoulder looks tense," she said, noticing me stretch. "Let me." Her hands rested gently on my shoulders. Warm fingers pressed into tired muscles, slow and careful. Each touch seemed to erase the thin line between _safe_ and _too far_. "Better," she asked quietly, leaning close enough that her breath brushed my neck. I couldn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. She kept her hands there a moment too long before stepping back with a small smile. "I'll put the kettle back on," she said casually, and left for the kitchen, leaving me with a strange, almost sweet sense of anticipation. That evening, the rain stopped, but heavy clouds still hung low. The house was dim, the warm glow of a few lamps making every shadow feel closer. Evelyn returned from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea. She set one beside me and curled up on the couch, close enough that our knees nearly touched. "It's nice when the house is this quiet," she said. "I can't remember the last time I had this much time for myself." "For yourself?" I echoed. Her eyes met mine. "And for the people I really like spending time with." We drank in silence. I could hear her breathing, smell the faint trace of her perfume. My heartbeat felt too loud. She placed her hand gently over mine, almost testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. "You know," she whispered, "life sometimes gives us a chance, and it's up to us whether we take it." Time seemed to stop. One wrong move, and everything would change forever. But instead of leaning in, she slowly withdrew her hand, took a sip of tea, and smiled lightly. "Don't worry. It's just a conversation." But we both knew it wasn't just underscore conversation. And that made it even harder to breathe. Night fell, quiet and heavy. The house seemed to listen to every step we took. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, barefoot, wearing a soft sweater slipping off one shoulder, a blanket in her arms. "Still awake?" she asked. "Can't sleep," I admitted. "Too much on my mind." She sat beside me, covering us both with the blanket. Her knee brushed mine. Such a small thing, but it carried more meaning than hours of talking. After a long silence, she turned to me. "Matt, if you ever want me to leave, just say so." I looked at her, knowing I would never say it. She must have read it in my eyes, because she didn't wait for an answer. Slowly, as if giving me time to stop her, she placed her hand on my cheek. I felt her warmth, and maybe her hand was trembling, or maybe mine was. "This is wrong," I said, but my voice sounded unconvincing. "Sometimes wrong is the only thing that feels alive," she whispered. I don't know who leaned in first, but suddenly, the space between us was gone. Her breath touched my lips, and the rest of the world vanished. Later, we sat in darkness, the TV off, the rain beginning again outside. She held my hand, gently tracing my fingers, and we both knew there was no going back. The morning was bright, as if the night's rain had never happened. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, striping the floor in gold. I woke earlier than usual. In the kitchen, Evelyn was making breakfast, hair loosely tied back, wearing the same soft sweater. It looked like any other morning, but it wasn't. "Morning," she said, her voice light, though her eyes lingered on me just a second too long. We talked about ordinary things, groceries, Melissa's trip, but every word carried the weight of what we both remembered from last night. When I reached for my mug, our fingers brushed. She didn't pull away. Instead, she gave my hand the slightest squeeze. "We'll have to be careful," she said softly, looking down at her tea. I nodded. Words weren't necessary. We understood each other perfectly. The rest of the day, we acted as if nothing had changed. But when we were alone, we traded quick glances, almost hidden smiles, fleeting touches. By evening, it began to feel like a game. A dangerous one. Before bed, she stopped by me in the hallway. No one could see us. She touched my shoulder lightly and whispered, "You have no idea how much has changed." I wanted to answer, but she was already walking away, leaving me in the half-darkness with this strange, intoxicating mix of unease and anticipation. I knew then, a new chapter of my life had begun, and there was no way back.